In football, European champions Paris Saint-Germain survived a scare with a late fight back from 2-0 down to draw 2-2 against Tottenham Hotspur in the European Super Cup final in Udine. PSG then recovered from missing their first penalty in the shootout to win 4-3 and get their hands on their first silverware of the 2025-26 season. Here is PSG coach Luis Enrique speaking after the match.
To be honest, I don't think PSG deserves this trophy, because you could see the difference between them and a team like Tottenham, who had 6 weeks of training, and we only had 6 days. It's such a big difference that for 80 minutes we tried to play our football, but we made a lot of bad passes.
And for more on this UEFA Super Cup win for PSG and to talk about the start of the Ligue 1 season this weekend, I can welcome Ed Dove, football journalist with ESPN and North Star Network. Good morning, Ed, and thank you very much for joining us. The UEFA Super Cup, maybe not the most important trophy in the football pantheon, but a good start to the season for PSG nonetheless.
Yes, absolutely. Particularly coming just a month after they won they were defeated in the final of the Club World Cup. There were questions about to what extent this team will be tired, to what extent they won't be sharp, to what extent there might be a hangover after that 3-0 defeat by Chelsea in the final in the United States. And I think during the first half there was evidence of some of those fears actually being realised with PSG looking a little bit off the boil. The passing wasn't as sharp as we're used to. There was a bit of frustration in this side. But obviously that second half and that late comeback was evidence of just what Luis Enrique's side are capable of.
And as you said there, the performance against Chelsea in the Club World Cup final, where they were comprehensively beaten, and also the first half yesterday, they were very much a marked contrast against their matches last season, particularly against English opposition when they were fairly imperious in the Champions League. It could be tiring, as you say, but is it also possible that maybe teams have figured out a way to play against this fairly formidable side?
I think it's perhaps too soon to make those kind of conclusions. I certainly think credit should go to Tottenham for how they managed a lot of that game. They ceded a lot of possession to PSG. Paris obviously dominated the ball. I think they had over 70% of the control of possession. But ultimately, it wasn't enough yesterday. I mean, even though Tottenham, they defended resolutely, even though they were putting their bodies on the line, even though it looked like maybe it was going to be another famous night for the London club, ultimately it wasn't enough. So I think we need a bit more of a bigger sample size before we can truly say whether teams have worked out PSG. And even if this team do need to adapt, even if they do need to modify, I think I would back Luis Enrique at this point with the resources he's got, with what he showed last year, to even take this team to another level over the months and the season to come.
And PSG's win in the Champions League final was greeted by many people in France as a win for the nation, something that probably mightn't have been the case 20 or 30 years ago. But the massive influx of Qatari money into PSG it's fair to say it's distorting Ligue 1 and making what was once a very competitive championship somewhat a foregone conclusion most years.
Yeah, I certainly think so. And I think that's something which other leagues might look at and be quite concerned about when we start seeing a hegemony of one team, whether it's because of money coming from an external backer or whether it's money coming from UEFA, from prize money, now from the Club World Cup, from FIFA, which has given such a significant windfall to some teams, which threatens to continue to distort the domestic divisions, maybe comes at the expense of local championships. In terms of specifically PSG in France, I certainly think there's a lot of intrigue around this Ligue 1 season. There's a lot of intrigue around the other teams, around the other storylines in the division, even if I think it would be a massive surprise to anyone if the likes of Marseille or Monaco could wrest the title away from PSG. I don't think anyone really sees that happening, which is a real shame for Ligue 1 and to the detriment of the absolute top end of that competition.
And Ligue 1 in general faces a serious revenue problem with last year's TV deal with DAZN falling massively short of expectations, and the league has now launched its own channel for broadcasting games. Now, some of the problems that French football face are universal, but none of the other big 5 leagues really struggle in the same way to attract broadcasters or viewers for that matter either.
Yeah, I think maybe Liga has kind of struggled to perhaps with a bit of an identity problem. Like, what exactly are we offering? In the past, it marketed itself a little bit as the league of talents, the league of future talents. But I think now I don't know to what extent that really rings true. I think maybe the football culture in some of the other French cities means that the traveling fans or the match day experience isn't necessarily as vibrant as it might be in Germany, as it might be in the United Kingdom. So I think French football really has to still find that USP, to really find what is it that's going to really make us appealing, going to make us competitive when viewers overseas are deciding which foreign leagues they're going to experience, they're going to watch. And I think whereas PSG's kind of star factor and what they achieved last season will make them a more appealing draw to international audiences, I don't think that translates to the other teams in the division. You mentioned financial problems. We saw what happened with Olympique Lyonnais, who were basically banned from Ligue 1 for administrative reasons, were then reinstated due to financial problems, but giving assurances. And I think when you see some of the giants or the relative giants of the French game encountering such struggles, Bordeaux, Saint-Etienne recently, I think it makes the league as a whole less appealing to foreign audiences.
Now, PSG were the first French club in 29 years to lift a European trophy, and actually only the second French club ever. But there have been some encouraging signs from other French clubs in Europe in recent years. Are there any others capable of making a breakthrough, if not in the Champions League, but in the Europa League or the Conference League?
Well, I certainly think it'll be fascinating to see how Marseille cope with life in the Champions League. Marseille, in any time, in any era, they're a fascinating club. They're a fascinating prospect. There's a lot going on, a lot of good things and a lot of not such good things. But I think De Zerbi's second season, I think some of the signings they've made, some of the clear positives of last season, what he managed to get out of Mason Greenwood, obviously moved from England in controversial circumstances, but actually demonstrated that he could be a really elite forward for Marseille. Since then, Timothy Weah has come back on loan. Aubameyang has returned to the club. Angel Gomez has been signed from Lille. He's a very, very competent, very, very able signing in Liga. So I think it'll be fascinating to see what Marseille can do in the Champions League, particularly with that Velodrome crowd behind them and such expectation. Despite the fluctuating fortunes on the field, there's no shortage of expectation at Marseille.
Well, here's looking forward to the new Ligue 1 season, and thank you very much for that, Ed Love, journalist with ESPN and North Star Network. And that's all we have time for now, but do stay with us for more news coming up on France 24.